Hello, and welcome to the Power of Authority podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Prince. Each week, you'll hear tips, stories, and inspiration from people who are leveraging the power of authority in their business, leadership, and life. It's time to get your story out of your head and onto paper so that you can grow your business, make a difference, and build your authority. After all, you can't spell authority without author. So let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to the Power of Authority podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Prince, and I am so excited to get you to meet our guest today. He's a real good friend, but let me tell you about my friend, Jeff Crilley. Jeff retired from TV news after 25 years in the business to start the country's first all-journalist PR firm. During his career, he made hundreds of national news appearances, including CNN, CNN Headline News, Fox News, the Discovery Channel, Good Morning America, and the CBS Early Show. Never heard of any of those, I don't think. He has been recognized by his peers with dozens of national and regional awards, including the Emmy, the National Headliners Award, the Edward R. Murrow Award, the Thurgood Marshall Award, and in 2004 was named by the Texas Associated Press the best TV reporter in the state. That's pretty impressive. So, Jeff, welcome.
I'm thrilled, and thanks for having me as a guest on your show.
Well, I could not have you as a guest on my show, and we'll get to why in just a minute. But so all of this background in TV broadcasting, how on earth did you get into that?
Well, I loved watching TV as a boy, right? So when I was a kid, Walter Cronkite was on TV. This is even before Dan Rather and Peter Jennings and Tom Brokaw were the headliners. And I just my father was a minister in downtown Detroit, and the local news stations would come through usually around Christmas time or Easter, talking about religion. Or when they did stories about homeless people in Detroit, my father was kind of the voice and face of the homeless issue in Detroit. And so I just remembered thinking how cool it was that these reporters were coming into my dad's church and interviewing my dad, and I wanted to be that guy.
So that passion or that love or desire for media really started early.
In childhood. That's
amazing. Well, so we are here in your studio, actually. I'm very, very proud to say that Real News PR is the company that I use to broadcast my show. And it is just an amazing facility. Obviously, I love this studio, but there's so many more. So how did you go from being on the news to helping people with PR? And podcasting and everything.
Great question. So I never intended to leave TV news. I wrote a book called Free Publicity, A TV Reporter Shares the Secrets for Getting Covered on the News. And I wrote that in the early 2000s. And that's how we met, because I'm running around giving speeches, and we would kind of bump into each other. And by the way, Michelle is the one that I swear by when it comes to book publishing. So if you do have a book in you, you need to talk to Michelle.
Thank you.
So anyway, as I'm running around giving this speech about my book, I started selling books, and I sold a total of 70,000 copies of the book through public speaking.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
For those of you who don't have a book, selling 70,000 copies from the trunk of your car is pretty amazing.
Well, thank you. It was, and then along the way, the business was born, because as I'm signing people's books, they're complaining about their PR firm, or they're saying, "Could I just hire you, Jeff Crilley? I'm sure I could buy your book, but can I just hire you?" And you hear this enough times, and then finally you say, "You know what? I don't know if I want to do this TV news thing for the rest of my life, and I might have a second act. And if I did, what would it be? Why not just help the people who get the idea of publicity, but they just don't want to have the drudgery of picking up the phone and calling reporters and the follow-ups and writing press releases."
Well, and nobody really knows how to do that. I mean, you were in journalism, so you kind of know the ins and outs, so it makes sense for everyone to come to you like, well, why would we want to learn that process if you could do it for us? Which is why I think you and I have always been kind of kindred spirits on in many, many ways. One way is we both love to help people to just tell their story. You do yours through media, through film, through podcasting, and so much more. I do mine through books, but it ultimately boils down to just letting people leverage the power of authority. Which is what this show is all about. But what would you say? Why is it so important for people, especially business owners, entrepreneurs? Why is it important for them to share their story in media or even in a book or any of that?
I think we live in a society where there's just too much information going on. And so to understand a brand, they either have to spend a ridiculous amount of money on advertising, like Starbucks and some of the big national brands, or you can do your own publicity and start telling your story. And I encourage people with no budget, do it yourself. You can call up the TV stations, tell them why you're a news story, not a commercial, but why you might be newsworthy. And you'll be pleasantly surprised that the journalists are very friendly, and they, often will thank you for giving them a great story.
Yes.
But the reason why you want to tell your story is I think it causes people to fall in love with a brand. And I'll use an example of, have you ever been at a barbecue restaurant and you grab the bottle and you pour it on and it tastes good, and then you flip the bottle around and then you find out that it was a recipe that goes back a century and it was passed down. Well, now the barbecue sauce didn't change in terms of its taste, but you just became much more passionate about it because you now know the story of this barbecue sauce.
So, and that's what I call it, the backstory.
Yeah.
I mean, and everybody wants to know the backstory, especially successful people. I mean, everybody, think of somebody that that's successful. Of course, you want to know why they're successful. They have a great business, but it's like, well, wait, how did you get there?
Yes.
Everyone wants the backstory. And I feel like with media, with TV, with podcasting, people get to, and speaking, right? Yes. They get to experience you. And you're no longer just this person out there. You're relatable, and and you and I think are both similar in that we tell people, look, if we could do this, you can do this, and it's just we connect with people in a way to encourage them to say, look, just put yourself out there and think of all the people that you can help. I want to dive in more specifically though on publicity. So this is real news PR. And for somebody who has started a business, right, and they don't have the budget of Starbucks, most of us don't, what would that look like for somebody who is either starting just any kind of business or an author or a speaker? What could publicity do for them?
It does give them credibility,
okay.
And I'm glad you invited me on your show because that's what it's all about. Yeah. There's a kind of a circular logic. Why are you on the news? Because you're an expert. Why are you an expert? Because you're on the news. So I tell clients and potential clients that if somebody comes to your website and they don't know you, and then they see this media page and all of a sudden they're seeing logos, Channel 8, Channel 4, Dallas Morning News, Dallas Business Journal, suddenly you must be for real. You must be legit, because implied is the media searches high and low for their authority figure, and they interview somebody who's honest and trustworthy and is an expert in their field. And I think too many people just kind of sit back and wait for lightning to strike. They want to be discovered. They would love it if the Dallas Morning News called them and interviewed them. And I always tell people the phone works both ways. There's no reason why you couldn't start reading the Dallas Morning News differently, start looking for reporters that might understand your story, and have the courage to pick up the phone and call that journalist.
I know I learned this from you, and it was one of the things when I first started with my book and understanding how PR really works, how publicity works, because most think, well, why would they want me on the news? Why would somebody want me in the Dallas Morning News or something like that, and think of it all one-sided. But I learned from you that really these reporters, they need you. They need experts. They need local experts.
Yes.
In some cases, they need them on a daily basis. So if you are reaching out to them or going through your company to reach out to them, you make their job easier.
Yes. Thank you.
And yeah, which I love. And it's so fun. So I love, and I'm so grateful that you come and share your wisdom at my Bookbound workshop, which is a 3-day event for people that want to tell their story, people that want to write a book. But it's not about just a book. I always say that. That's maybe the starting place, but you really have to think beyond the book, right? It could be a blog, it could be a podcast, it could be so much more. But you share so many great success stories of people that have used PR to open their business. Do you mind sharing one or those?
Absolutely.
One or two?
I tell people that it's all about the idea. So you can come up with a great idea, and that great idea can completely launch your business. And so I remember one of our clients started a happiness company. And the happiness company actually started with a letter to Dear Abby. Dear Abby was complaining or agreeing with a reader who complained about the holiday, self-serving holiday messages, where you send and you brag about how your kid got a 4-point, and, and somebody was complaining about that, and her name is Pamela Gale Johnson. She wrote Abby and said, "I'm sorry, why are you being such a Scrooge? If people want to share a little bit about their family, that should be enough." And Dear Abby printed it and apologized for being a Scrooge. And that thing, she understood the power of Dear Abby. All that was an email, it was an email to Dear Abby, and everything went viral. So that wasn't about press releases. That wasn't about anything but a great idea. Here's Dear Abby saying something that I disagree with, and I'm going to jump into that feeding frenzy, if you will. And that launched her whole business, and that's been 20 plus years.
Wow. Would you say, for somebody who doesn't really know anything about media, journalism, that whole world, is it a good idea to try to do it on their own, or would they be better served to bring in a company, like yourself, to do that for them? And why would that investment be a worthy investment to do it that way?
I think if you're strictly on a budget, do it yourself. But if it comes to the point where you're making poor decisions on your use of time, then that's when you might want to hire it out. So I say that I could learn how to change the oil in my car, but I'm never going to learn to change the oil in my car. I'm going to pay that guy to do it. And so we all make those kinds of decisions. We can stay at home with some spray starch and iron our own and starch our own clothes, or we can send it to the dry cleaner.
And that's where I feel like you and I we have so much in common as it relates to our businesses, because I know for myself at least, I did not sit down and map out that I was going to start a publishing company. It really wasn't in my dreams. I just wanted to help people to see the greatness within them, to, share their gifts, their talents, share their story. But in the process, it was exactly that, because I would sit down with someone and say, okay, this is step by step what you have to do to publish a book, or to write a book, to publish a book, to market a book. And that's kind of what Bookbound is all about. Right. But yet, even though they had all of the detail, they knew exactly what to do. I had so many people say, yeah, but I don't want to do that. I want you to do that.
Yes.
And it was an interesting transition where I thought, wow, okay, well, not only is it an opportunity, but it's like, this could benefit people. If this is going to help you to get that story out sooner, absolutely. And you did the same with the whole PR thing, right? Because you wrote the book to tell people, here's how you do it.
Yes.
But there's value in having a professional do it for you, because it's just going to make it be more successful, but quicker, And
allows you to concentrate on the stuff that you should be concentrating on, which may be public speaking or sales or something that would add to the bottom line of the company.
Exactly. Well, I want to shift a little because I want to talk podcasts.
Cool.
Obviously, this is the Power of Authority podcast, and we are utilizing Real News PR's studios to do that. But podcasting has really just exploded the last 5-10 years. Sure. But what made you, first of all, want to get into the podcasting business, and what opportunities do you see for entrepreneurs to consider having their own podcast?
Well, I give my daughter the credit for coming up with the podcast idea. She came to me maybe 3 years ago and said, "Dad, we need to start podcasting." And I said, "Sarah, who listens to podcasts?" And she says, "My generation does."
I was just going to say her generation and below, for sure.
She said, you see all those young people jogging on the Katy Trail listening to something? It's not music." And so she convinced me to give her my credit card, and she was gentle on my pocketbook, and she built a little teeny studio upstairs. We were upstairs in this same building for several years. And then as I was giving the tour, I would say to people, we can get you on Fox and Friends, we can get you on the local news. And they'd say, ooh, you have a radio studio? I'd say, yeah, we have a radio studio. Yeah. I can get you on Fox News. And they were like, no, but let me see this. And so it became kind of the glittery, shiny thing that people were attracted to. And that's when the light bulb went off. And I said, okay, Jeff Crilley, podcasting is cool, and people find it great to have their own platform. Right. Why don't you just invest in it and give television broadcasting to podcasters? So there's nothing like this in the nation, as far as I can tell, where somebody can come in off the street, get matched with an amazing producer, right, and you have a show open, and it's just all you have to worry about is being the talent.
Yes, show up and interview amazing guests.
Right, and what it does, I think it helps not only lift your own brand, yes, Power of Authority brand, but everybody you're interviewing is ending up advertising for you because they're sharing it on their Facebook and Twitter and YouTube.
You know, I have a theory, and I don't know that I'm right per se, but, you know, thinking about books, 15 years ago, 10 years ago even, you know, if you wrote a book, it was a big deal. And it's still a big deal to write a book. I'm not saying it's not. But now more and more people understand that it is possible and that they have a story. I mean, that's part of my job. I want you all to know that. But it is also becoming kind of you better have a book if you want to get opportunities. So, for example, we work with a lot of people that want to be speakers. Well, if you want to get on the big stages, if you don't have a book, they're going to look at you like, right, why don't you have a book? I have a feeling podcasting is going to be the same thing in the next 5 years, that if, you know, because I had a conversation just yesterday with a client and I said, you need a podcast. And she said, well, but there's so many, everybody's doing a podcast these days. And I was like, exactly, because eventually you will become irrelevant if you don't have one. It'll become just like the book. She's an author? Check. Okay, she's got her own show? Check. Social media? Check.
You know, I think it's going to replace the blog. So when you think about it, you know, blogging became popular 20 plus years ago, and I remember a lot of CEOs saying, "Okay, well, I guess I have to have a blog," and then they would start it, but it was a chore because they don't get up out of bed every morning wanting to write something, and so then you would look at their blog and it was inconsistent. They would post something in October and then they post something else in March, and you can't grow a following that way. But podcasting, if you make the commitment to come in once a week, once every other week, and have a consistent show, and your guest is advertising for you, I think you'll find that not only is it cool to go into a cocktail party and say, you need to come on my show sometime.
Exactly.
Because not everybody has their own show. But I think the idea that it doesn't seem like work, it's not a chore. You know, when you woke up this morning and you knew that we were going to do an interview, that's fun.
It's fun. Yeah, right? I love it. No, I love it, literally. And maybe not everybody is thinking that they are host material, but truly you are. If you have a passion and experience and you're inquisitive, I mean, anybody can do a show. What I love about these shows, though, it's a little different. It's not just a podcast. So many of you are listening through the podcasting, but many of you are watching this as a video because we're doing it as well. Why did you decide to go that approach?
Video and audio. Well, when you think about it, radio is kind of theater of the mind, mm-hmm. and I admire everybody who does theater of the mind. Right. But sometimes, you know, how do you, a pause where somebody gets emotional, you want to see that face. And I just think there's so much that happens in their expression and the way they describe something and how their eyes light up when they talk about something. And that's what these studios are about, is to bring that piece to life. And of course, if you're, running on the treadmill or something like that and you just want to listen to something, you always have that option. Sure. We're sending everything out to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube Live. We can also post it on LinkedIn, and then we take the video off and send it to iHeart and iTunes and all the other places where you can hear audio podcasting. So you get the best of both worlds. I know, and I love it. And I know I highly recommend, and at the end of this, we'll give them how they can get a hold of you. But I definitely recommend just to see podcasting as it's just one more avenue to help more people. And that's really what your message is all about. And if you're in business, it's because you're in business to serve. So if you want to serve more people, you have to get your message out in a bigger way. Thinking back,
again, the show is called The Power of Authority. It is a play on words, authority. You can't spell authority without author. But, and for you, I love your story because it started with this book. Yes. And then you started speaking. What do you, how would your business be different if you didn't have that business card to open up those doors initially? Would it be different?
I don't think it would have gotten off the ground because I was too scared to leave Channel 4. I mean, it was a very predictable existence. I got my check every Friday. There was
you were for Channel 4. I mean, that's kind of a big deal, right?
Yeah. So I could not have taken the step into entrepreneurship had it not been for the book. At my height, I mean, I tell this in front of audiences, at my height I was selling 11,000 books a year, and I did it fairly consistently for 6 straight years. At $10 a pop, you can do the math. I'm making 6 figures on the side and then 6 figures at Channel 4. So the decision to leave Channel 4 became much easier because my side hustle was doing so well. So I think if there's anybody who's thinking about leaving their 9 to 5, I would say don't quit your day job. Start a side hustle and just prove the concept. Does this, is it fun? Sometimes people say, oh, I want to work around pets, and then they quit their job and they work around pets, and suddenly that was a bad decision. Well, if they volunteered at the Humane Society or something like that on the weekends, they would get a better feel for whether or not they would be wise to quit the day job.
Well, and look, do you have to have a book to be successful? Absolutely not. But I do tell people, if you want it to be a little bit easier to have doors open, people open doors to a published author, much quicker than they do somebody who's just, I joke about it, but this is the truth. I was the exact person the day before I wrote my book. Nothing has changed in me. The advice that I gave in that book, I was given to my girlfriends all the time. Yes. But somehow, just the one act of becoming published, the next day, all of a sudden I'm getting, calls to speak. I'm getting asked from people to coach them. And I'm thinking, wait, I just wrote a book, Wow. But that's where I saw it. And that's where the clarity came from and why I'm so passionate about helping people do that. But your story, I feel like, is just one that, is just the perfect example of what it can do. And how could you have imagined back when you were at Channel 4 that you would have not only written a book, not only gone out and spoke all over the place, but to have studios and helping other people to get their message out in big ways? Well,
it's such a blessing to me because when I was a TV news reporter, I was telling people's story kind of one-on-one. And then when I started the PR firm, we're helping tell people's story through the media. And this is a total shift. This is, what if we gave the power of the media to the podcaster? Now you don't have to go to Channel 8 and say, please put me on TV. You've got your own TV show. And we're producing, some of our programs are getting more than 20,000 views on YouTube. And to put that into perspective, Good Morning Texas here in town gets 19,000 viewers. Wow. So we're producing programming right now that is rivaling commercial television.
That is amazing. Okay, that's exciting. He's talking about my show. No. We're just going to put that out there. No, I'm excited. So what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out? Because there's no lack of things to do. Yes. What would be the best advice you would say, okay, as you're building your brand, as you're building your message?
One of my favorite things is an expression: you got to circulate to percolate. So I run into too many entrepreneurs who think they're going to do everything behind a computer, and you got to get out there. You got to meet people, just as you and I have, speaking to new audiences. What you're doing is you're creating buzz. So and that's why this show, I think you're going to find, Michelle, as it continues to grow, that you'll be reaching a lot more people than you have to date. And part of it is, I believe that you do business with people you know, like, and trust, and you got to hear it a couple of times. And I remember when I was just getting my firm off the ground, I got a voicemail one time from somebody, and I saved it for a very long time because it told me I was doing something right. He said, well, Jeff Crilley, I guess I got to call you because 3 people in my life who do not know each other have told me in the last 24 hours that I have to talk to you. Wow. So call me back at this number. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, In Dallas-Fort Worth, there's something like 7 million people. So for 3 people who don't know each other to kind of ping one guy in a 24-hour period tells me how busy I've been, right? And that's essentially what happens with your podcast. You're interviewing people who are then sharing it with their audience, and you're starting to ping a lot of people. And as more and more people say, wow, I'm hearing great things about Michelle. I know she has a publishing company. She did my friend's book. I'm starting to watch her podcast. I think I might need to call this Michelle. Yeah. It's just the buzz that's coming.
You're so right. And it's relationships. And when you have experienced someone, even if it's just they're on a stage, but you can, or hear them on a podcast, you can feel what somebody's really like. And then, but that's when we feel comfortable referring. To say like, oh, you need to talk to my friend. It is true. I mean, anyone that I talk to that needs to do a podcast or media, I'm like, oh, you need to talk to my friend Jeff Crowley.
I say the same thing about books. So
I love that. So what is next for you as well as Real News PR?
I'm going to continue to be obedient to what the market is telling me. So what the market's telling me right now is to continue to invest in this broadcast division or podcast division, because it's in hypergrowth. About a year and a half ago, when we first built these studios, we were doing something like 5 shows. We're now doing in excess of 75 different shows, unique shows, for a total of 250 episodes a month. I mean, that's crazy hypergrowth for this one division. And so the market is telling me, just step on the gas. This is not a time to coast. Mm-hmm. Step on the gas. So we're building new studios that I'll be showing you soon. Yes. And just so excited about the team that we've assembled, and they're producing amazing programming.
They really are. And I'm excited too. So how can people get a hold of you if they're interested in working with you?
So realnewspr.com is the website, and from there you can also navigate to our Real News Communications Network, is what our podcast division is called, and just call the number on the website or shoot us an email. We'd love to talk to you.
Definitely. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. So honored to have you on the show, and very proud to be a client, and we'll have you back.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you.
All right. Well, for those of you listening and you're inspired, you're ready to take action to start claiming your authority, then you need to do it now. And we're going to help you make it really easy. So we'll give you a copy of my latest book, The Power of Authority, How to Get More Revenue, Respect, and Results by Authoring a Book. Just go to thepowerofauthority.com. Just pay shipping. We'll send you the book for free. But more than anything, just know you have a story. It matters, but it is only going to really help you and other people when you tell it. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Power of Authority podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and find me on social media and let me know, what did you like best about this episode? And don't forget, share this with a friend. We'll see you soon.